Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. It is, of course, Tuesday, September 20th, 2016. Today we've got just amazing stories to discuss. First off, we want to get into the breakup of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. I mean, it is just heartbreaking to wake up to this morning. I guess Brad has been cheating on Angelina. Yeah, that's right. He likes to smoke pot. He was having an affair with another pretty actress, although I'm not really sure who she is. Hey, Facebook, we already kind of talked about this. By the way, you can tune into us on Facebook. If you haven't already, make sure to like us on Facebook. We'll continue to broadcast on these social media too big to fail tech monopolies as long as we can. A way to bypass that bullshit system completely is to support us independently, alternatively, on demand at amtvmedia.com. For the simple price of a cup of coffee a month, you support everything that we do, our growing operation, our crew, so that you don't have to sit your children in front of a TV and be brainwashed by these poppy pop culture bullshit stories that make up the breakup of Bradgelina. Who really gives a shit? These are social elitists, and it only proves that we live in an idiocracy. Again, make sure to sit your children in front of those too big to fail networks like the Clinton News Network or Fox News and brainwash them through the commercialization of our society. Again, folks, an idiocracy. Well, we have a great show planned today, and thank you so much for your support. Being a little cynical this morning because it's just irritating to see, these stories make it to major headline news. Even the Drudge Report is talking about this right now. Now, also on all of the alternative wires, Hillary is looking a little bit cockeyed. Really kind of interesting. She gave a speech, I think it was yesterday, and her eyeball is just moving all around. Something is obviously wrong with this bitch. Again, we talked about this before anyone else. Alternative Media Television, a few select outlets were the first to talk about the fact that Hillary looked very, very ill, that obviously she was falling down. I've fallen and I can't get up, and that something was obviously wrong. And her political operatives and the Democratic Party continue to bold-faced lie to us and tell us everything was fine. She was perfectly healthy. I mean, hell, she could go out and run a marathon until she collapsed on September 11th, 2016. What I believe to be a much too convenient event. Again, it doesn't mean that she's not very, very ill. Of course, then they admitted that she has pneumonia, even though we know that's false and that's bullshit. She's had all these problems, sinusitis, ear leakage, surgeries that she hadn't been transparent to the public about. And now, not only looking like death, we reported on this yesterday. I mean, I'm not bullshitting you folks when I seriously think that Hillary Clinton could be dead before the November election. In fact, I have a special report we'll be broadcasting in our last segment today, a major event coming before November. Now her left eye is cockeyed. It's not in sync or in alignment with her other eye. It looks really, really bizarre. But again, she's going to, according to the establishment narrative, she's the next president of the United States. She'll be looking at Putin cockeyed in the other direction and falling down with her little medical device. I've fallen and I can't get up at these, major geopolitical meetings. First story I want to dig in today is what we know about the New York bomber SCUMBAG. And again, we talked about this in yesterday's broadcast, which seriously made me ill to my stomach. I had to walk off set a couple times and know that wasn't stage and that wasn't an act. It's really how I felt because I don't like reporting on these devilish stories on a regular basis. Again, this continuous terrorism promoted by the U.S. State Department, our own federal government, and the policies in Washington, D.C., by the way. So I wanted to dig into the nitty-gritty because I talked about some fundamental truths that we learned about this, latest terror attack, which, by the way, happens pretty much every day. In fact, I haven't checked my computer or iPad in a couple minutes. Let me check to see if there's been another terrorist attack real quick because this is a very regular occurrence. Let's just check a couple headlines here just to make sure that there hasn't been another knife attack, stabbing, bombing, false flag staged event like September 11th, 2001, martial law, Boston bombing type Sarnaff brother event. Let me just check real quick. Again, it's been just a couple of minutes. Let me just make sure nothing's happened. Okay, looks like we're good for now. So again, it makes me very ill. It makes me sick to my stomach. But there's a couple fundamental truths that we learned, folks. I talked about the 3 fundamental truths yesterday. Fundamental truth number 1 is that you are less safe than you were pre-2001, September 11th. You are less safe. Even post the mass surveillance state that makes up the National Spying Agency, that makes up the leaks from Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, etc., you are less safe. In fact, the next time you're at a mall or something like that, watch out for knives. Watch out for Freddy Krueger stabbing you. Watch out for Martha Stewart pipe bombs or pressure cooker bombs if you're walking down the street. I mean, who would even want to live in a major U.S. city anymore? Honestly, who wants to live in this cesspool that makes up the United States of America? Anybody? Anybody? Honestly, we have any takers? You guys want to put yourself in a city? I mean, even the global elite that live in their compounds in the city, I mean, why would you want to live there? You're just one giant target. And again, you live in this, surveillance state now, but you're less safe. That was fundamental truth number 1. Fundamental truth number 2 was that a responsible man with a gun, actually an off-duty cop, a good police officer, I'm sure the Black Lives Matter movement doesn't like that, was the one that saved lives at the Minnesota knife Freddy Krueger stabbing attack. It took a responsible man with a gun to save people's lives. Not a common or popular narrative that the mainstream media wants to push to the American people. Because again, Barack Hussein in the membrane and Hillary Rotten Clinton want your guns. And truth 3, number 3, is that leftist immigration policies in this country has only fueled and bred radical jihadi terrorism here in the United States of America. So who was this scumbag? Who was Ahmed Khan Rahami? Who was he? Well, allegedly the father told police, the scumbag, that in 2014 his son was a terrorist. Federal agents investigated the building housing the Rahami family's restaurant in Elizabeth, New Jersey Monday, seeking clues in the Manhattan and New Jersey explosions. One thing I noticed was that they owned a First American Fried Chicken. Made me kind of hungry, An interesting name, too, First American Fried Chicken. A guy that hated America, his family names the restaurant First American Fried Chicken. Maybe like First Terrorist Fried Chicken or something like that. 2 years before Ahmed Khan Rahami went on a bombing rampage in New York and New Jersey, his father told the police that the son was a terrorist, prompting a review by federal agents, according to 2 senior law enforcement officials. Separately on Tuesday, another official said that when Mr. Rahami was captured during a shootout with the police, he was carrying a notebook that contained writings sympathetic to jihadist causes. In one section of the book, which was pierced by a bullet hole and covered in blood, Mr. Rahami wrote of killing the kafir, or unbeliever, according to the official, who agreed to speak about the investigation only on the condition of anonymity. After Mr. Rahami was captured on Monday morning, ending one of the largest manhunts in the city's history, investigators have turned their focus to what might have motivated, inspired, or led him to plant bombs in the Chelsea section of Manhattan and on the Jersey Shore. Well, the first thing I want to say about this, folks, and this was headline news, via CNN, they want you to know that this was an amazingly quick and swift capture. In fact, it was a huge success. It only took them like a few hours, I guess, after the fact, according to the mainstream media. Yet they didn't stop the bombs from going off. He still blew up the bombs. He still maimed people. He still, again, exploded these shrapnel-laden bombs, so, it hurt individuals. See, they didn't stop the terrorism. These thousands of CCTV cameras didn't do shit. Yeah, they caught him after the fact, after the mayhem. Same thing with the knife attack dude. Again, they didn't stop it. A man with a gun who was, I think, in civilian clothing at the time because he was an off-duty police officer stopped it. Not the surveillance state, not this 1984 George Orwell experience that now makes up the United States of America today. And it's important to understand America breeds this terrorism, right? The United States actually created ISIS. We'll be talking about this in one of our upcoming segments. They even support the ISIS stronghold today. In fact, there was a bombing that killed dozens of people where the United States actually has admitted, but called it a mistake, even though it wasn't a mistake, bombed the Syrian army to support an ISIS stronghold. Somebody was like, hey, Christopher, why didn't you report on this earlier? Well, I thought it was obvious, right? United States creates ISIS. They bomb the Syrian army to support ISIS because they're trying to push out Bashar al-Assad. So the mainstream media wants you to know that it was an amazingly quick capture. Yeah, sleep soundly at night, America. The bomb still went off, but they captured him after the fact. In fact, it took a bar owner who found him taking a nap, Ahmed taking a nap, to call in. Again, the cops didn't find him. A bar owner did. See something, say something. Tattletale on your neighbor. Report anything that looks suspicious. I mean, man, could you imagine if they had reported the wrong individual? The cops probably just would have opened fire on the innocent guy. But this is how we live in the United States surveillance state today. Again, they put out an emergency alert system. I guess that there's a couple different alerts that we can get. There's your traditional emergency alert you've probably gotten on your cell phone or your electronic device. There's the Amber alerts, if a child is abducted or something like that. And then there's a presidential alert, which as of yet hasn't been used by the President of the United States. I actually think we'll see that in the not too distant future. I mean, talk about fear-mongering. Getting a direct text message from the President of the United States, it'll probably just say something like panic. It won't even tell us what's going on. It'll just be like everyone's phones goes off at once. It just says panic, and that's when the big bomb goes off. And you look into the horizon down into the sunset and the nuke is going off and you're just kind of taking it in and watching it and knowing that you're screwed. So we have this mass intelligence surveillance state, illegal, by the way. In fact, this doesn't go along with the Constitution at all. But you need to remind yourself you're less safe. Yeah, it was a successful capture, but they didn't stop the act in the first place. So it could have been a lot worse. I mean, thankfully, thank God, nobody died, but it could have been a lot worse. In fact, there could have been bombs going off in every single town and American city in the United States at once. And there could have been hundreds, thousands, maybe more slaughtered and maimed. And the mainstream media would have been like, hey, it's a giant success because after the fact and all the mass death, we captured the guy pretty quick. We sent out an emergency alert system with, the millions of cameras that all over the place. Bullshit, lies. And again, they want to take your freedom, folks. They want to take your liberty. They want to declare martial law like we saw with the Boston bombing, where they openly engage in a shootout with the youngest Tsarnaev brother who was unarmed in a boat. But you didn't hear any outrage from the radical left. That was fine. That was fine. Bypass the Constitution, declare martial law, and open fire on the youngest brother who had been tracked by the CIA for years. His eldest brother was. And again, they didn't do anything about it. Again, folks, this is a mainstream media report here. Ahmed Khan, Rahami's father, told police in 2014 his son was a terrorist. But our intelligence did nothing because, again, they promote terrorism here in the United States. It goes along with the surveillance state narrative to be fearful at all times so that they can use it against you to take away your freedom and solidify this globalist agenda, which made up, by the way, Barack Obama's UN speech this morning. So I wouldn't call it an amazingly quick capture. I would call it a success from the globalist elite agenda perspective, but an absolute failure from a civilian perspective. Again, they didn't stop shit. A New Jersey bar owner found bombing suspects sleeping in a doorway. Thought he was homeless at first, but reported, again, tattletaling. He saw something that just looked out of place. We've seen this with Homeland Security before. If you see anything that looks out of place, report it. Just report anything to the big police state that makes up the U.S. government that, again, can't stop this terrorism. I mean, if intelligence was any good at stopping terrorism, we never would have had September 11, 2001. But, of course, that was an inside job. CNN also asks, bullshit Clinton News Network, mainstream media, propaganda machine, 7 questions we have about the bombings in New York and New Jersey. Again, a coordinated attack that, by the way, could have been a lot more successful. Was successful in that it actually happened. The surveillance state did nothing to stop it. One interesting detail, and these are some of the questions that they're asking, is Rahami affiliated with the terror group? Now, Mayor de Blasio at first said, oh no, it's not terrorism, even though I don't know how it could not be terrorism, a coordinated plot, even if it was a lone wolf trying to kill, murder, maim innocents is an act of terrorism. Is he affiliated with the terror group? The mainstream media is actually saying no. Yeah, you've got this right. They're actually saying no because I guess in the literature and just some of the notes that he had written down, he had made reference to Anwar al-Awlaki. an American citizen who was killed anti-constitutionally and illegally via drone strike, that because al-Awlaki was affiliated more with Al-Qaeda, al-Qaeda, that it's not a terror attack because ISIS is different, even though it's not. Even though ISIS reared its ugly head from al-Qaeda, again, ISIS didn't even exist a couple of years ago until the United States wanted it to exist, until they began arming and funding the moderate terrorists on the ground that, by the way, cut people's heads off. And then they can use that against you in this vast surveillance state that makes up the USSA today. Is Rahami affiliated with the terror group? They say no, because he had some kind of allegiance to Anwar al-Awlaki, who they say isn't affiliated with ISIS, even though it is, because the CIA created al-Qaeda, which became ISIS. This is all a part of the intelligence war, by the way, folks. Also, they ask questions like, was he on a watch list? Well, yeah, we know the father said that his own son was a terrorist. Intelligence did nothing. What did his family know? Like, how was he building these bombs out of the, I think it was apartment or home of the family where everybody lived? Like, how would this go unnoticed? I mean, how could you build a bomb in your bedroom if you lived with all these other people? Well, it turns out that the father actually did notify authorities. He did everything right, said his son was a terrorist, but again, this isn't my opinion. The U.S. government did nothing. Because again, folks, they promote terrorism. He also married a wife who immigrated, I believe, from Pakistan. He'd kind of been back and forth. And again, Ahmed Khan Rahami, was a naturalized citizen of the United States from Afghanistan. They say it's pretty common that these individuals go back and visit and they just let them come back in the United States, even though they become radicalized when they go visit. But again, the U.S. government does nothing to stop this. So his wife actually traveled out of the United States days before this horrific act in New York and New Jersey. A lot of questions here. Mainstream media obviously propagandizing the American public for a reason. They did nothing to stop this event in the first place. Also, because we live in such a liberalized, politically correct society, Rahami here, Ahmed, and his family, I believe it was his father and his brother, including himself, sued. They actually sued local police claiming that they were being persecuted for being a Muslim. You see, these terrorists can actually even sue in this country before they carry out these treacherous, heinous acts and violence. Because again, we live in this politically correct society where we just allow people to get away with anything. Cell phone alerts used in New York to search for the bombing suspect. Again, this only shows us what a totalitarian police state we truly live, where they send out these alerts and there's thousands of cameras on the street, and there's this ring of security similar to what we see in London, for example, but it's now moved to our American cities, where again, there's a total loss of privacy in this country. I mean, why? I ask the question again, why would you even want to live in an American city today, a major one? I don't even think it's rational that you'd want to live in a major city. You'd want to get out of Dodge, on your own property, where there's land. It's another good reason, too, by the way. Again, it was a responsible man with a gun that saved lives in Minnesota, that more people should open carry or conceal carry, because obviously that's the only thing that stops these radical jihadi terrorists from killing, maiming, and murdering innocents. You come to places like our state in Arizona or Texas, for example, this guy would have had his head blown off in about 5 seconds, the first attempt at a stabbing of an innocent civilian in one of our malls, because everybody's armed. So I guess the terrorists, in a way, are welcome in states like Arizona and Texas, because they wouldn't stand a chance here, to be quite frank with you. Another report from NBC News says Ahmed Rahami's capture, more than 8,000 cameras helped snare bomb suspect. Oh, it was such a success. The bombs went off. They didn't stop the terrorism. But hey, good news, America. There's 8,000 cameras in New York area, metropolitan area, that helped snare the bomb suspect. Oh, it's so amazing. I think we actually need 10,000, maybe 20,000, 100,000 cameras. I mean, maybe they should just put a camera on your shoulder like they do the police officers now. Cameras in every bedroom. We've already got cameras everywhere with our cell phones in this idiocracy that we live, so we can get our update alerts on Brangelina Jolie's breakup. I say double, triple, quadruple the cameras. It's good news. They can't stop the terrorism, but they can take away your liberty and freedom. So that's just absolutely fantastic. Other reports give us the consensus view that the bomb suspect, Rahami, is a deadbeat, hated America, says his daughter's mother failed to pay child support and this sort of thing. Just a total deadbeat as they run their family restaurant, First American Fried Chicken. Led an unassuming life. This is the other character, the Minnesota knife attack terrorist. Tahir Aden, if I'm saying his name correctly, told his family simply that he was going out to buy an iPhone. Yeah, that's right. He was just going to get the new creation from Apple. He was just going to get a new iPhone before he went up to people, asked them if they were Muslim, and began to slaughter them. In fact, we'll refrain from showing some of the images, although I've seen a few of them on social media of some of the victims, and it's just appalling. I don't even recommend looking at it. But he was on his way to buy an iPhone, this idiocracy. Oh, yeah, just get a new iPhone, and kill a couple people while he's at it. This idiocracy that makes America. I mean, again, we have to look ourselves in the mirror, America, because America is promoting this kind of terrorism. I mean, we live in an absolute cesspool. Does it have anything to do with all these egregious wars in the Middle East that we keep fighting? All these bombings that are taking place in countries like Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, and other places in the Middle East. Does it have anything to do with that at all? Does it have anything to do with Barack Obama arming and funding moderate terrorists on the ground? They're cutting people's heads off. Does it have anything to do with ousting despot leaders like Muammar Gaddafi so that it creates an even larger cesspool? Or, funneling guns through Benghazi Gate into places like Syria to potentially overthrow people like Bashar al-Assad? Does it have anything to do with these false wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that had nothing to do with September 11, 2001 at all? Because, of course, anyone with a thinking brain knows it was an inside job. These are the questions that the mainstream media fails to ask. But again, he was just the guy, he terrorist. Yeah, he was just off, go get a cell phone. Yeah, just, supporting Apple and their new product that came out. I guess it's got like earbuds that don't have a, connector device. They're like wireless earbuds, and I think they're waterproof. Isn't that cool? Yeah, it's a great country, by the way. Great society, America. You're not safe anymore. Bombs going off everywhere. You got to tippy-toe around everything. It's like Israel. Terrorist attack can happen at any moment. In fact, let me double check again, see if there's been another terrorist attack. It's been probably another 5 to 10 minutes or so. No, looks like we're okay. I'll check in another 5 to 10 minutes. There could be another terrorist attack threatening your local city or town. Again, they will do nothing to stop it, folks. We're seeing a lot of hate, as a response from this. In fact, a family at a St. Cloud mall, they say, was picking up an iPhone. But I also noticed a report talking about the fact that people are putting up, anti-Muslim get out of Dodge signs as a response to this jihadi terrorism and this radicalism. And it is a shame. I would have to say it's, probably not the smartest thing to just blanket an entire religion just because there's a couple of radicals, in one basket perpetrating these crimes. But we do have to ask the question again, what's the connection here? Why is this continually happening in America? Why has the problem gotten worse? And why is this become a normal part of our life? And we need to look at some solutions here. I talked about yesterday why it makes perfect sense in my mind that there should be a halt to maybe even all immigration, temporarily a halt like Donald Trump has promoted, especially from these countries that are breeding terrorism, for example, until we figure things out, until there's a stop to these types of events and hideous acts for more than a week. It makes a lot of common sense. Again, an off-duty police officer, a hero, I believe his name was Falconer, Jason F. Falconer, who saved lives in Minnesota, who killed the mall attacker. By the way, he's also a firearms trainer and a marksman, an absolute hero. Trump Jr. likens Syrian refugees to Skittles. Donald Trump Jr., the Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump's son, tweeted a graphic on Tuesday that likened Syrian refugees to Skittles, which was swiftly met with criticism. This image says it all. Let's end the politically correct agenda that doesn't put America first. Hashtag Trump 2016. With a graphic that said, if I had a bowl of Skittles and I told you just 3 would kill you, would you take a handful? That's our Syrian refugee problem. So you guys can see this on the screen. It's got a bowl of Skittles. And again, this is kind of a meme. It says Trump Pence on it, make America great again. This is from Donald Trump Jr. He says, and let me repeat it, if I had a bowl of Skittles and I told you just 3 would kill you, would you take a handful? That's our Syrian refugee problem. Maybe not the best way to present it, but it actually does make sense. and it is what we are allowing to happen here in the United States of America. And of course, the criticism just came pouring out from the radical left, who had to mention a propaganda image of a boy in Aleppo. You know, Gary Johnson, what's Aleppo? Doesn't even know what Aleppo is. That's the dipshit running for the Libertarian Party. We met the guy. He's a nice guy, but he obviously has no idea what he's talking about. Not a very smart individual. But the radical left, the first thing that they began mentioning was this boy. Well, he's not a skittle. The boy who's positioned and choreographed and staged, where the Western media is taking a picture of him, where he's like sitting in an ambulance, but nobody's helping him or taking care of him. He's got like bomb fragments on him. He's bleeding from the face. It's a tragic image. But see, the U.S. government and our intelligence agencies use this to help to promote and fuel their war and their intervention in this part of the world and their destabilization effort and potential overthrow of the rightful Syrian government leader, Bashar al-Assad. They'll say he's committing the atrocious acts when it's actually the United States of America. I'll be getting to all this and more in just a moment. We've got to go to a quick break. I'm Christopher Green. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're watching AMTV Alternative Media Television. Please support us so we don't have to use Facebook or, the too big to fail tech platforms that continue to censor, ban, and block the real truth. Get out everywhere, make it viral, put your comment question in the box below, and subscribe on demand today. Start your free 14-day trial right now. I'll be right back.